Good morning, guys. Kate Lincoln-Goldfinch here with you on Tuesday mornings live to talk about all things immigration. I'm going to give you news updates. I'll answer your live questions about your cases, give you an action tip of the week, something you can do to help the immigrant community. As a reminder, my law firm, Lincoln-Goldfinch Law, does immigration. We're offering free consultations right now, and we are a virtual law firm. So although we do have a physical office located in Austin, Texas, we're able to consult with and represent clients in all the 50 states. So if you are watching this and you know someone who needs good, solid immigration legal advice right now, feel free to have them reach out to us. We'll be happy to help them. The consultation is at no charge. So with all that being said, let's get started on the news of the week. And this is not immigration related, but of course, I'm in Central Texas. So I can't talk about news without just touching on the flooding that happened in our area over the weekend. I was on an interview yesterday with Sirius XM Radio, and the interviewer, the host of the show, he's like, "Well, I hope you had a great July 4th weekend." And, like he's somewhere else in the country, and I was like, "No, I didn't," and I'm sure that's true for all of us in Texas. It's just been so heavy to watch the news of the flooding and the families that are impacted. And if you're anything like me, your social media feed right now is just like bad news, bad news, bad news, and you can't pull yourself away from it. So I don't know. That's the way that I've been feeling about the flooding in Central Texas. And the only thing that I know how to do in these moments, like Mr. Rogers said, we look for the helpers. That helps us feel good, and then we become helpers. There's a lot of donation drives happening right now. You look everywhere for places that you can drop off supplies. We had some flooding near Austin in the Sandy Creek neighborhood near Leander. That's a neighborhood that's needing some particular help. There's a lot of immigrants in that community. Of course, donating. There's lots of good organizations. I've posted a few on my site that you guys can donate to, that I trust and feel like are doing good work. And then we're going to be asking the hard questions about how did this happen when we know that this is a flood zone, and we know that there are families and children in this region. How did it happen that NOAA was allowed to cut funding, and that the National Weather Service issued flood alerts that were not communicated locally to the people? How did it occur that an alarm system was not put in place, that camps didn't have protections in place, knowing that they were on grounds that could be flooded? There's lots of accountability that is to come, and a lot will come out. I'm sure that there will be tons of investigations, and I know a lot of people feel like now is not the time for that, and I understand that. For some people it is. For some people, action and accountability is a bomb, because what else can we do in these moments? There's just not a whole lot to do. And so starting to question how this occurred is the way that some people heal and process. So anyway, I just couldn't talk about the news without talking about that. But let me get to immigration news. As per the usual these days, it's a lot of bad news items, maybe a couple of good things sprinkled in. So the first bad news item is that temporary protected status, TPS, is ending for Hondurans and Nicaraguans. I've been working with this community for decades now. When I got my start at American Gateways, we did TPS renewals for these groups of people who have been here since the late 90s. So they got TPS after Hurricane Mitch and Honduras. These are folks who have now, renewed their work permit for almost 30 years and have bought homes and had children here and have jobs and are very, very entrenched in our culture, society, economy, and they are now losing their status in 60 days. So that's really hard, and it was expected. My advice to all TPS holders, but particularly Hondurans and Nicaraguans right now, because you're under a deadline, is that you all consult individually with immigration lawyers, because there's lots of different ways to get legal status. You could get legal status through family, through other humanitarian cases, and you don't actually know what you qualify for until you consult directly with an immigration lawyer. Like, don't talk to your friends about it. I mean, you can talk to them about it, but don't accept that as the final answer on whether you qualify for something. Please go to an immigration lawyer and have a consultation if you're losing your TPS status. And anyone who's in TPS status, even if it doesn't expire until next year, I think should be operating under the assumption that it's going to be canceled. They haven't renewed any program yet. The second bad news item is the budget bill, which they refer to as the big, beautiful bill. I do not call it that. This is, of course, gave over $150 billion in funding on immigration. I mean, not to mention the tax cuts to the wealthy and the corporations and the cancellations of Medicaid and the sneakiness with which they funded immigration, but they wait to cut people's benefits until after the midterms. I don't know if anybody noticed that. So voters won't start feeling the impacts of this action of Congress until after they vote next year. But in terms of immigration, there's going to be $46 billion for more border enforcement, border wall funding, $45 billion to expand detention beds, which will double about the amount of people who are in detention in this country. And then more money to hire immigration judges. That one is good. We do need more judges. So those are the big bad news items. On a good news front, we did get a block on in a federal court in DC against Trump's asylum ban. So this was his first day in office, January 20th. One of his first executive memos or orders was to cancel asylum along the southern border. Done, no more asylum, right? Very sweeping cancellation of what is a very established set of laws that were passed by Congress. And a federal judge issued a block on that. It wasn't an emergency injunction. We've been talking about emergency injunctions, like in the birthright citizenship case. This is a way that judges issue immediate, urgent, emergency stops on policies. This actually took a little bit of time. This policy was announced on January 20th, and the decision wasn't rendered until July 2nd. This is what they call an decision on the merits. The judge heard the whole case, reviewed all the evidence, everything occurred, and this was a 128-page decision by this judge that said, no, that isn't presidential overreach. The president can't just change the Immigration and Nationality Act. That's not allowed. So this is expected to be appealed up to the DC Circuit and then maybe even the Supreme Court. But it's good news. It's good news for now. It's another good action coming out of the federal court system. We have another cool case pending in a federal district court in Massachusetts that is challenging the deportations under political speech, specifically the pro-Palestinian protesters. A few people have brought lawsuits, some of the student visa protesters, some of the permanent residents. And this is the first case in which the Trump administration is having to defend its ideological deportation scheme, right? Where they're going after people just for free speech. They're now in court having to defend that. So we'll be watching that closely. In other news, in the case of Kilmar Abrego Garcia, his case continues in criminal court. He's still detained, and we're just waiting to see what's going to happen. Those charges they were flimsy, the charges against him. So it'll be interesting to see what they do with him. I think probably the criminal case is not going to stick against him. But if it doesn't, I think that he'll get deported right after. So like say the charges are dismissed, I think they're going to end up just deporting him to a third country because he has withholding of removal. So that's my expectation on that. Not great news for him, but we'll be watching and I'll be letting you guys know. My final note, and we know this, experts warn that restricting immigration will harm the U.S. economy, especially in labor-intensive industries. Labor-intensive industries, think of manual labor, blue collar, construction, landscaping, healthcare, caring for the elderly, restaurants, service industries, etc. These are all the industries that will start to suffer if we continue this crackdown on immigration. Thank you. I was like, where are my notes? My questions. Okay, here we go. Let's get to your live questions. Go ahead and start sending them over, and I will be answering them. Any new updates on DACA? Okay, so the deal with DACA is we're waiting for the Fifth Circuit decision to be applied in Texas by Judge Hainan. What happened was in the Fifth Circuit, Texas led a bunch of Republican states in suing against the program. And the Fifth Circuit said, we see a difference between deferred action and work permission. And a state can have standing and say, we're not going to issue work permits, but all the states have to issue deferred action. So DACA renewals, DACA initials are protected nationwide. Unfortunately, in Texas, which is led by our Attorney General Ken Paxton, Texas brought a bunch of evidence to the lawsuit saying Texas is going to be harmed because we have to issue driver's licenses to people who get work permits. Like, this was their argument. And they presented the most evidence before the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals. And the Fifth Circuit said, of all the states that have sued, Texas is the one who has given us the evidence that we wanted. And therefore, we will order that in Texas, the state of Texas does not have to issue work permits to Dreamers because Ken Paxton and the state of Texas brought all this evidence showing that they would be harmed if they have to issue driver's licenses to Dreamers in Texas. So let's not forget who's behind all of this in the state of Texas. But in any event, where we are right now is Dreamers have work permits in Texas. We're waiting for Judge Hainan to interpret the decision and apply it. There's, I think, some like backdoor sort of agreements and conversations going on. I don't really know. I'm not privy to all that. One thing to note, one idea is that lots of people have a difference between a permanent address and a physical address. So the common example of this is a college student who is living in a dorm, but their permanent address is mom and dad's house, right? And so all their mail goes to the permanent address. They go there on the breaks from school. They're there during the summer. This is their permanent address, and they're just temporarily physically in this other address. Dreamers in Texas might have a permanent address outside of the state of Texas. I don't know if your family lives there and you're just here to work or you're just here to study, and you can put that permanent address on your DACA renewals. But of course, I counsel against fraudulent usage of permanent address. This needs to be a real thing in your life. But if you have any questions about that, you can talk to us about it. But that's just an idea. And then I would also say, I don't feel like it's a sure thing that work permits are going to go away in Texas. I think that is, we'll see. Maybe Ken Paxton will see the light. Maybe the state of Texas will stop fighting so hard to hurt the Dreamers. I don't know. Maybe give your AG a call. This is a follow-up to this question. How long do these decisions usually take? Shouldn't USCIS be the one applying the rule and not Judge Hainan? So nobody really knows. I imagine it'll be soon. I think it's imminent. It's basically, it's not USCIS. It's the lower court interpreting that higher court's decision. And we see this, like this is going on in the birthright citizenship case. So when an appellate court, the Supreme Court, or one of the circuit courts says, this is our edict, blah, 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 they then send the case down to the lower court to interpret and to apply what they said. And that's what's happening. The Fifth Circuit has said, we believe that Texas has standing and is harmed by the issuance of work permit to Texas Dreamers. Judge Hainan is supposed to take that and tell everybody how to act. That's what we're waiting for. So hopefully, Hainan, Paxton, everybody wakes up a little bit. But Hainan has issued a lot of bad immigration decisions, I will say. Okay, I think I answered your questions, Seneca Land. If you have more on DACA, feel free to shoot them over. And then TikTok, what do I think the future for Honduras TPS will be? It's going away. Honduran TPS is going away. I mean, honestly, TPS, temporary protected status. TPS is a program that is temporary, and it's meant to protect people who are from a country that has some sort of infrastructure collapse and they can't return because it's unstable there. So Hondurans got it after Hurricane Mitch, which was in 1998 or the late 90s. They have to have been here since 1998. So I think it's, there's a fair argument that Honduras has had an opportunity to rebuild after a hurricane that was almost 30 years ago. So I can see why there's justification for ending the program. I don't like it. I think that there needs to be some type of, permanent status for immigrants like Hondurans on TPS. I know a lot of them. I mean, they're amazing people. But it's going away. I don't foresee that any judicial challenges will save it. This is going to impact about 76,000 people. And so basically all these folks who have been here since the late 90s really just need to be starting to look at what else is available to me. There's family-based applications. There's humanitarian applications for victims of crime, victims of labor abuse, things like that. There are things that we can explore in a consultation that might be available to people. So don't just assume there's nothing you can do because your friend said it. Please just talk to a lawyer. Valerie, could it be possible for Honduran TPS holders that have been here for decades to apply for asylum? Yes, it's obviously an uphill battle to get asylum when you've been out of your country for so long. And you wouldn't be applying for asylum, you'd be applying for withholding of removal because you're supposed to apply for asylum within a year. But then again, there's an argument that you were in an exception because you were in TPS status. Anyway, it would be a complicated case, not an impossibility. Complicated and worth a shot if you've got a legitimate fear of returning to Honduras. Like if you have family members who have been harmed or people like you who have been harmed, then I think it's worth a shot. Seneca Land, got it. Thank you. I had DACA 3 times. My last one was not renewed due to the first injunction. That's interesting because the renewals have always been going on. The renewals have not stopped, even with all the litigation. Seneca Land, so I wonder what happened with your last one. I think we should review that. And they are permitting DACA initials, so I think you should apply. I think you should get it back. So let's talk. Let's have a consultation. Brasso and TikTok, Texas just wants us out. That's all. Not everybody. This is what I want to say. Not everybody. Some Republican leaders in Texas are ridiculous, and they don't understand that. Texas is 40% Hispanic. 1 in 5 people who live in the state of Texas is an immigrant. Half of our health home care workers are immigrants. 1 in 4 nurses is an immigrant. The statistics are overwhelming. But also just like walk out of your house and go down the street and go get a taco and enjoy some good music and enjoy this entire state that is so awesome because of immigrants. And what I want to say is we know, most of us know that here. The majority of Texans love and appreciate immigrants, but we have had gerrymandered districts that allow Republicans to get elected in sneaky ways. Okay. And so it tips the scales in the legislature Republican in a really unfair way. And our statewide leaders happen to be Republicans. I don't personally think that's going to last very long, not the way with they're acting. So I just think, keep in mind, Texas doesn't want immigrants out. Maybe Greg Abbott, maybe Ken Paxton, maybe some of the members of the Senate and the House, but not the rest of us. Really. We love immigrants. Okay. Thank you for your comments. Let's get to some more questions. Keep them coming, guys. These are good ones. Okay, I'm a pastor in Houston. 2 of our church members have been detained by ICE. One is scheduled to be deported this week, and the other has a court date on July 15th. I'm trying to advocate for them. What steps should I take to see if your team could help? So when we have we do detained work, and we're doing more detained work in our firm because that's what's needed. The best thing to do is to have the closest family member, or we call handler, the closest handler. Usually it's like the grandma or the aunt or the best friend or whoever's closest to this person. Call us and do a consultation, and we'll find out, are they bond eligible? Can we stall a deportation? What strategies can we employ to protect this person? Every case is different. They're all really complicated. It's shifting all the time because of what's going on. But the first thing is to get the closest person to do a consultation. And ideally that person remains our point of contact and can get us all the documents we need and all that. It's a job, right? To be the handler is a job. But of course, whoever's doing this is willing to do it out of love. But what I think one thing that I find, and this is, to the pastor, is that when there's like lots of people involved, sometimes there's lack of clarity around who is responsible for this family. And then as the lawyers, we'll get calls from like the sister and the aunt and the pastor, and everybody wants information from us, but we have difficulty getting what we need. And this is why I always talk about having a family plan, having a designated point person, putting all the documents in a safe place, knowing who's going to take care of the kids, so that the family has designated their point person. It's almost like, the power of attorney, or who's going to be the executor of your estate if you die, or who's going to take care of your kids. That level of responsibility that you're handing to someone, and then give that person to us, and we work with them to do everything we need, because things move so fast. We really need someone in the know who can get us what we need quickly, because the delays are often for documents or information. Okay. People First Project. Due to the cruelty, would people be eligible for U visas in the aftermath? I think that's a really great idea. I mean, I think there is going to be consequences. I think there will be consequences for these ICE agents, these people, these guys, just storming down MacArthur Park yesterday, kidnapping people off the street in masks, slamming their head against, I mean, I don't have to say it. We've all seen it. I think that we will see consequences in the aftermath of this against the people who are behaving this way. But to the victims, I think U visas are a creative and thoughtful way to look at this. So a U visa is a crime victims visa. One of the things about the U visa is you have to get a certification from law enforcement that you reported a crime and you were helpful in the investigation. So you do have to find a law enforcement agency that's willing to take a report down and certify you as a crime victim. But I think that there are also a lot of law enforcement agencies that are not okay with what is happening. I mean, what ICE has done, and what the state of Texas has done, mandating the state troopers and the sheriffs to collaborate with ICE, is that they have sent a message to immigrants and Hispanic people, Black and brown people, frankly, around the state of Texas, that they are not safe with law enforcement. They're not safe reporting a crime, testifying to a crime, cooperating with law enforcement. That is the message that has gone out to a very large group of the population in this country. And a lot of law enforcement agencies know this. And I've seen this, like the sheriffs or the chiefs of police, they'll go before the legislature in Texas and they'll testify and they'll say, we are interested in public safety, community policing, community engagement. We don't want to enforce immigration laws. First of all, we don't have the resources for that. Second of all, that would harm our relationship with the public. And that's what it's done. So my point is, I think that there are police authorities who don't like what's going on, and they would be willing to report and maybe even certify crime victims. So I think that is worth pursuing. And I'd like to talk to anybody who's been harmed by the police or ICE, physically harmed. We should talk. And of course, there's been reports of assaults and sexual assaults in detention centers. That is a U visa. That is a crime victims visa right there. So please talk to a lawyer. Melanie, thanks for being here always, Melanie. Who is being sent to Alligator Alcatraz and who is being sent back to their countries? The most vulnerable people right now that we're seeing get picked up are the folks who are in some sort of process who came in relatively recently. And I would say like those who came in during the Biden administration: Cubans, Venezuelans, Nicaraguans, Haitians, who came in during the Biden administration, including those who came in using CBP-1 or with a parole program, have asylum applications pending, are going to court, are going to their ICE check-ins. These are the folks that are being detained and deported quickly right now. And you probably will note as I list off those people, wait a minute, those don't sound like criminals and drug traffickers and people who are here to harm this country. You're right. They are not. They are people who have fled violence and come to this country and who have only followed a legal process and are doing everything the right way. But they're low-hanging fruit. and ICE wants big numbers. And these people are coming straight to their doorsteps. So they're being lazy and they're lacking humanity. And I'm not afraid to say it. People First Project on TikTok. We're telling people to call the police at every sighting of ICE. I'm a paralegal studying immigration law for 2.5 years. Cool. Yeah, I mean, I think I don't disagree with that. My only sort of caution on calling the police at an ICE sighting is be aware of your agency, where you live, and what the relationship is between your local PD and ICE. In Texas, it really varies. APD, Austin Police Department, pretty safe for the immigrant community to report crime and interact with. Some police departments right outside of our city limits, not so safe. And now every sheriff's department with every county that has over 1 million people is cooperating with ICE. And so, I think these are good ideas. And my caution would be understand where you live and what the relationship is between ICE and your local PD. Can I reopen my immigration case, if I missed a court hearing? Yes, in many instances you can. I don't recommend intentionally missing court hearings because you'll get ordered deported in absentia and you won't be able to reopen. But if you didn't know about the hearing and you weren't notified, you can file a motion to reopen. And that comes with an automatic stay against deportation. So that can be a protection. How do I request a copy of my immigration file? So we use the FOIA, the Freedom of Information Act request, and you can FOIA lots of federal agencies. When we do a FOIA in our office, we FOIA 5 agencies on our clients to get all the records that might be with the Department of State, the Department of Homeland Security, the Immigration Court System, U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services, CBP, the FBI, like any of the potential law or not, federal agencies that might have a file on this person, we FOIA, and each agency has their own process for doing it. It can be a little complicated and like nitpicky and annoying because they all have specific ways they want you to do it, and if anything's wrong, they'll just reject it or ignore it, and then you won't know. So FOIAs are a whole thing, but that's how you get a copy of your immigration file. Okay, I'm going to read one question. I'm going to give you guys one last chance for live questions, and I'm going to give you your action tip of the week. So if you have any thoughts or questions, please put them in the comments now. How do I prove a bona fide marriage for immigration purposes? So they use any credible evidence. So there's no specific evidence that they will allow or disallow. I refer to as formal and informal evidence. So formal evidence is anything that shows lives and living and finances together. Both your names on a lease contract or a mortgage statement, shared bank account, shared credit cards, both people on the electric account, cell phone bills coming to the house, identifying each other as the beneficiary of life insurance policies, or being on each other's health insurance, or having an estate plan that gives everything to the other person. That's all sort of official evidence of a shared life. And then there's informal evidence, which can be photos, affidavits from friends and families, pictures of yourselves together. I already said photos, social media posts, that kind of thing. I would say go heavier on official evidence and lighter on informal evidence. And the reason for that is, here's an example. One time I went to an interview with a couple that had very well documented, super valid marriage, lots of official evidence, but they wanted to get letters from their friends and family. And so they got 10 affidavits from all their friends and family about how real this marriage is and how in love they are. And we went to the interview, and 3 of the letters, I can't remember what the issue was, if we didn't have the driver's license copy, or if there wasn't a notary stamp, or there was some technical issue with the letters, and the officer almost issued a request for evidence to fix those. And I was like, wait a minute, just take those letters out. You have enough before you. And they were like, okay, fine. Yeah, you're right. And they approved it. But that to me was I never forgot that. And I'm like, don't give them unofficial stuff that they can nitpick when you have enough official stuff. So hopefully that answers your questions. I've got something here from Maria Jose. TPS for Honduras. Could I apply for DACA as an initial applicant? Yes, you can. Isn't that fun? It's the evidentiary. Well, actually, you know what's great for you, because for DACA you have to show physical presence between 2007 and 2012, which can be kind of hard. But you'll have your TPS renewals and your presumably your tax returns, so you'll have an easier go of applying for DACA initial. So give us a call if you want some help with that. Okay, and then Instagram, Canos, will there be an appeal to the TPS for Honduras and Nicaragua? I don't know. And what I think is that it probably wouldn't survive an appeal. I mean, it's been so long, and I think that the government's argument will be that both of these countries have had ample opportunity to recover from the hurricanes of the late 90s. And I think that the federal courts would probably side with Trump on that one. So I don't have super high hopes that the TPS for Hondurans and Nicaraguans will be saved by litigation. I really think it's time to look for other options for folks in TPS status. Okay, last question, Mom. Mimi, Mom has a U visa as her adult citizen child. Can I help her residency go faster? No, but if she has a U visa, does she already have the U visa, or the U visa is pending? Does she have deferred action? Could you apply for a deferred action or a bona fide EAD? I have questions about where your mom is in the process. So send me a DM and we'll chat. Or actually, let's do a consultation and we'll look at where she is, if she's protected, and what you can do to protect her more. Okay, let's get to the action item of the week. Every week, I want to give you guys just something you can go out and do. This week, I want to focus on the flood victims in Central Texas. There's a lot of immigrant families who have been impacted. Specifically, there's a neighborhood called Sandy Creek in Leander that was flooded, and lots of people lost their homes. So if you want to do something to help, you can actually go out to Sandy Creek and help out today, help people sort of sort through debris and bring them some bottled water, bring them some non-perishable food items. If you can't physically get out and help, just look for Sandy Creek and donate specifically to those victims, because I've seen some posts from the people in that neighborhood and they're feeling a little forgotten. And so I think it would be helpful to give some specific love to Sandy Creek and Leander. So thanks, guys, for being with me. It's Tuesday. We're here in English on Tuesdays, and I'll see you on Thursday, same time in Espanol. Bye.